Remember when I was a kid and we sneak out late at night, down to the bonfire where I'd always pick a fight. I never learned my lesson too crazy, man, he pulled that knife. It's funny how you learn to live when you almost lose your life. We can get that feeling back. Nostalgia. We can get that feeling back. Close your eyes, rewind your mind, and turn up the radio. Remember how way back when we used to let it go.
All right. Welcome to the May session of Youth Lead Now. My name is Tyler Yarbrough, coming from Oxford in the beautiful state of Mississippi, the birthplace of America's music. I'm an alum of the inaugural cohort of the Aspen Young Leaders Fellowship, Mississippi, Arkansas Delta, and I'm passionate about building more sustainable and resilient communities and strengthening the voice of young people, especially here in Mississippi. I'm honored, so honored to be here co-moderating this discussion with the brilliant Brenda Velarde.
Thank you so much, Tyler. I'm honestly so excited to be here and to be co-moderating with you. My name is Brenda Velarde. I am a sophomore at Rutgers University, Newark. I am from Newark, New Jersey, and something that I'm truly passionate about is just helping to build my community here in the city of Newark and strengthening the voice of the youth in the city of Newark. I'm also a member of the Aspen Young Leaders Fellowship cohort, the inaugural cohort here in Newark, New Jersey. We're so excited to be here and to be talking with Troy Carter. Like Tyler and I said, we're so passionate about really amplifying you guys' voices, and so that's what we're here to do today.
And what better way to do this with a discussion with a music mogul, Troy Carter. And so the purpose of Youth Lead Now is to serve as a platform to amplify the voices of young people, bring national leaders into conversations with local communities, our communities, provide a source of hope and inspiration as we navigate these difficult and trying times. Moreover, we want to bring a bit of the Aspen experience into the homes of youth, families, and educators around the country and the world. For me, Aspen helped validate my own power. It made me realize something that I already knew, that I was a leader, that I could ask tough questions and lead moving conversations, that I could propose solutions while also building community. But that's something that we all can and must do, especially right now. Isn't that right, Brenda?
That is 100% true, Tyler. And we're just excited to start off. But before we begin, we want to express a huge thank you to our more than 25 amazing community partner organizations who are joining us this month. We want to give a special shout out to Crossroads Cultural Arts Center, Future Leaders of Chicago, the Academy Group, and Sandy Hook Promise. As of right now, we are joined by more than 100 listeners from across the globe. This is just such an amazing and incredible statement about the power, the motivation, and the influence that us young people can have. Finally, we want to give a huge thank you to this month's sponsor organization and a key partner for the Aspen Young Leaders Fellowship, Wyzant. Wyzant is our go-to platform that really connects youths of all ages to expert online tutors, from helping us stay on track to exam prepping to really upskilling us to be competitive in the job market. Wyzant tutors specialize in student success. The impact of this personalized instruction, it goes way beyond the classroom. And it really just empowers all of the students to build confidence, to build resiliency and mastery. And Tyler, actually, didn't you use Wyzant this semester?
Yes, I actually did. And let me tell you, Wyzen isn't your typical math or science tutor. It allows you to hop online and schedule a time to meet with your tutor that's specific to your needs, whether that's math, science, the GRE, the ACT. For me, I needed some help on some simple life skills, and that was time management. So I was able to hop on, find the perfect tutor, and we sat down and we pretty much planned my entire semester. And so I was able to finish that final paper a week or two ahead of time and wasn't just cramming like the last minute, how sometimes it can get. We understand. So it's time to get the show started. We'll begin with some opening thoughts from our featured guest and then shift to taking questions from you, the audience. A few notes to maximize your experience. You can use the chat feature for any technical issues. You can ask all of your questions throughout the duration of this session by using the Q&A feature. So the Q&A feature for all your questions, please start your submissions with your name and your location so we can shout you out. So one last note before we begin. As the last 48 hours show, just because we are in the middle of a pandemic doesn't mean that issues of violence, white supremacy, racism, and every other social issue stop. We can't have a conversation here tonight, we can't, about resilience and hope without also acknowledging the racial harassment of Christian Cooper and the violent killing of George Floyd. These must and will be a part of our conversations tonight. We'd also like for everyone to take a moment and pause in reflective silence for the loss of George Floyd's life and the community trauma being experienced not only in Minneapolis, but throughout the country.
Thank you so much, Tyler, for really taking the time to touch on this topic. I think it's definitely very important, and it is something that we're going to discuss in today's talk. But without further ado, we really just want to introduce to you guys Troy Carter. Troy Carter is the founder and CEO of Q&A. It's a music and technology company that really focuses on building integrated solutions via distribution, management, label services, and data analytics with a highly collaborative, artist-driven approach. He founded both Atom Factory and Cross Culture Ventures. He served at Spotify as the global head of creator services and oversaw the company's relationships with artists, producers, songwriters, and record companies. Troy is also part of our Aspen family as a Henry Crown Fellow and a trustee of the Institute. Known for his art of the hustle, Troy's unstoppable combination of work ethic, grit, and genius took him from living out of his car to the C-suite. So today, Troy, we are more than honored to be talking to you. Welcome to Youth Lead Now, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Tyler and Brenda. Like I was saying before, we started, it's just amazing to see young leaders like you guys step up to the plate. And thank you for interviewing me and giving me this opportunity. It was very easy to say yes. Aspen has become a really big part of my life. Has done a really great job at helping me shape my leadership skills and really think about my place in the world. And so I want to thank the Institute for having me as well. When David called me about doing this, and we're thinking through just sort of topics, one of the things that resonated was this idea of really being able to push beyond resilience. And one of my favorite books and sort of favorite concepts is a book called Anti-Fragile. And it's this idea of, you know, when in tough times, you know, people think about, okay, if you survive through tough times, you're this resilient person. But if you actually get better through tough times and challenges, it goes beyond resilience. And it's this concept around being anti-fragile and this anti-fragility. And when I think about, you know, sort of the journey of my life and where I came from, you know, at certain times of when things didn't look like they were going in the right direction, you know, when you're in it, you sort of question it, and sort of looking in the rearview mirror, you begin to understand it more. And, you know, so, you know, my background, I'm originally not too far from Newark. I'm from Philadelphia. And when growing up in Philly, I actually fell in love with music from a very early age. And this is like almost like during the birth of hip hop. So I fell in love with, you know, the break dancing, graffiti, DJing, rapping. So it's just like, I just wanted to be around it. And it was just something that I loved automatically from the first time I heard the first rap song on the radio. And but being a music executive definitely wasn't something that I thought I'd become. And the neighborhood I grew up in wasn't where you saw the sort of examples of, you know, of doctors, lawyers, and things along those lines. It was either sort of blue collar or in some cases it was activities that actually weren't legal. So you saw drug dealers and you saw you know, working class people, and you know, it was unfortunate. The unfortunate part, my dad, when I was 7, ended up being arrested for murder and was in jail from the time I was about 7 till I was about 20. And sort of growing up, single parent household, you know, two brothers. We lived over top of a hardware store in a little apartment. But, you know, the one thing I was able to see was my mom get up and go to work every day from 5:30 a.m. like clockwork. And which automatically instilled, you know, this idea around work ethic. But for me, I fell in love with music so much that when I got into high school, that was my only focus. I had this dream of I was going to become like the biggest rapper in the world. And, you know, I met my best friend in 9th grade. And we had this idea, like if we met Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince, who were also from our neighborhood, that we were going to become these famous rappers. And that was my only focus. So I gave up on my books. I would cut school left and right. And finally in 11th grade, I ended up just dropping out completely. And my mom picked me up one day from the house and she took me to the center called Job Corps. And they put me on a bus basically and sent me to Port Deposit, Maryland. And she said, "You're not coming home until you have that piece of paper," which, you know, at that time was a GED. And I ended up going to Job Corps after I dropped out, got my GED, but came back and sort of focused on music and waited outside of Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince's studio pretty much every single day until finally somebody let us in and we played our demo tape and sort of quickly found out that we sucked. But I think Will and his partner, Jazzy Jeff, were really saw something in us and really saw the drive and tenacity. And him and his manager took me under their wing, and I ended up moving to California at one point while Will was doing Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and kind of got a chance to learn about the television business. And, you know, and I wasn't doing anything fancy. I was getting cars washed. I was, you know, doing, running errands and things along those lines and answering phones. But it did give me the opportunity to see
what success looked like and what it felt like. But I hated LA, ended up going back to Philly and started promoting little shows at nightclubs and the YMCAs and things along those lines. And ended up promoting one of the shows where I brought Notorious B.I.G. to Philly. Well, I was supposed to bring him there and he didn't show up. And, but through that circumstance, I was able to meet Diddy, who had signed him to Bad Boy Records. And being able to meet Diddy, he gave me an internship at his company. And it was when he first started Bad Boy, essentially. So I think learning from Will Smith and his manager, James, at this very high level in LA, sort of taught me, you know, sort of what success looks like here. And then looking at what P. Diddy was building with Bad Boy, it was like a master class in hustle. And, you know, what he and I had in common, you know, he lost his dad too, but he lost his dad to violence. His dad was killed when he was around, I think, 6 or 7 years old, and got shot in Harlem. But it showed me that people coming from similar circumstances were able to achieve these things. So I really didn't have any excuses. Mm-hmm. And so shortly after working for Diddy, I decided to start my own talent management business. And that came from an opportunity from an artist named Eve, who had just gotten a record deal with Dr. Dre, and she was looking for a manager. And it started off with me helping her find a manager, and we couldn't find anybody she liked. So she gave me the opportunity and saw some potential there, which I had never really managed anybody at that point. But, you know, my job was, how do I invest in learning? And, you know, a little bit of it was fake it till you make it. So I had to, you know, look the part a little bit, but at the same time, ask a ton of questions from people that I trusted, who ended up giving me just some of the right guidance. And it was a great opportunity. And I ended up being able to build this boutique talent management company that me and my partner, Jay Irvin, ended up selling to a company out of the UK. And I ended up moving back to LA to open up their LA office, and ended up not really liking the company that I sold to. I was somebody who was so invested in artists and so invested in music, and I found myself becoming a suit. And, you know, I wasn't able to do what I loved anymore. It was really about the business and not just about the artistry, which my passion was driven around. So I was able to get the company back and start this new company, and invested all my money into this new company, all my savings that I had into this new company, was able to buy myself a nice house and move my family to LA and have, you know, some cars and like sort of living the dream. And the idea was, hey, me and Eve are going to start this thing all over again and just crush it. And right after I started the company, she walked into my office and fired me, and basically wanted to take her career in another direction. And, you know, it was completely unexpected. And because in my mind, I had my strategy mapped out and I had my goals written down, and this is the way that it was supposed to happen. And it caught me completely off guard and really left me in a bad situation, because financially at that time, all of my savings were invested there. And all my relationships were sort of invested there. And really, it was my first time experiencing depression. And, you know, because usually I'm this optimistic person, you know, let's take over the world, we can do this. And it was hard to get out of bed. And I didn't even know I was going through depression at that time until I sort of looked back at the symptoms, because I didn't see a therapist or anything like that. And a friend of mine happened to introduce me to meditation. And I think coming out of that situation, you know, when I look back, you know, it is one thing to struggle as an entrepreneur, you know, when when you're young and you got nothing to lose. But in this particular case, I think it was challenging because now I had the responsibility of being a father of 4 at that time. And, we have 5 kids now, but at that time I had 4 kids. And, we had, tuitions that were due that we couldn't pay. We had mortgages that were due that we couldn't pay. I had to shut down my office. I had to, pretty much let all of my employees go. And it was a very humbling experience. And, what I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs about is like when you got to tell, like when you got to sit down with the dean of your kid's school and tell them you can't pay for tuition, and you got to, and you're begging them to keep the kids in school. Like, that's real stuff right there. That's not, your technology stack went down that day. That's like, is a lot at stake. When you got to look your employees in the eyes that have been with you throughout things, and you can't make payroll and you got to let them go, those are real conversations. And, watching, my wife and my mother-in-law pawn their wedding rings to save my house, that's a humbling situation. So, and when you're in it, is no feeling like it. And, I remember pulling over on the road, one day and just bawling my eyes out. And it was one of those where like, I realized at that time that was rock bottom for me. That was like as low as it went. But it was cleansing at the same exact time. And, I would credit, three friends that it really helped me see things clearly. One was a friend of mine who introduced me to meditation. And I started meditating, and I went to this meditation class, and nothing fancy. It was like literally at a guy's apartment for like this 3-day thing that was transformative to me. And what it allowed was for me to sort of separate myself from the actual situation, and gave me tools to be able to look in the rearview mirror. And one of those tools was sort of this exercise around, when you think about all of the successful things that have happened in my life, how many of them did I actually plan for? And how many of them were actually serendipitous? And what I realized, all of them were serendipitous. And what that does is it allows you to look at the idea around faith and what you actually can't control. So where you can do the work and you can make all of those preparations and things like that, but a lot of things is just through grace. And things that you sort of willed into your life, but in terms of the specifics, sort of letting the universe keep the score, right? So that was very helpful in terms of the restoring my faith that there could be a positive outcome. The second one was Will Smith and his manager James. When I had to shut down my office, they basically just gave me an empty office that was next to their office in their building. Like, so basically Will and James shared an office right here. My office was right here, which just to get out of the house was good. And like, just to be able to, be in a positive environment was good. So that was helped lift the spirits. And then, but the last thing was a friend of mine named Vincent Herbert had called me up, and he had told me about an artist that he had seen on MySpace. And probably most of you guys are even too young to even remember MySpace or have been on it. But, he brought the artist to the office, and, she came in and played me song after song, and that was pretty amazing. And she had just gotten dropped from Def Jam Records and was coming from West Virginia, pretty much sleeping on her grandmother's couch because she was super depressed. after getting dropped from her record label. And basically we agreed that we were going to work together. But she still had a manager at that time, but they were parting ways. But when she came back to California that second time, I took her to the fanciest Italian restaurant that I could find, which was Spaghetti Warehouse. That's all I could even afford at that time, and was hoping that my credit card was going to even go through. And we agreed that, let's go out here and let's do it. We're going to work together. And that artist was Lady Gaga. And we spent a year basically just trying to get one song off the ground. And we got every door slammed, in front of us. Everybody's told us no, that the music wasn't pop enough, and, it wasn't radio friendly. And, we got lucky because YouTube was just coming out, and Twitter was just coming out, and Facebook was just, coming out of just being only at schools. And now we were able to reach fans directly and start building audiences on it. So sort of looking at this as an opportunity to be able to talk directly to fans. And that was sort of my introduction into Silicon Valley, which I started meeting a lot of entrepreneurs who then gave me opportunities to start investing in their company. So as Gaga was growing as an artist, and as I started rebuilding my talent management roster, I was also investing in these new companies. Uber was just getting started in San Francisco. Lyft was this little company called Zimride. Dropbox was just starting. Spotify was just before it came to America. I was investing in all of these companies just as I started making a little bit more money now, getting some money back. I'm like, I don't want to lose it again. So let me be smart about it and see, can put some towards these other entrepreneurs as an investor, but also have the opportunity to learn from those entrepreneurs. So, the journey has been like, sort of, like when people look at success, you always hear this idea of, for successful companies, you want this metric to be sort of up and to the right is what the metric looks like, right? On that graph. And really with life and entrepreneurship, and really mostly things that you drive towards, success looks like this thing where it looks more like this, or it's like all of these ups and downs and turns, and you think things are going to go left, then they go right. And what I learned in my life is that if you don't give up, and you sort of had this choice, do I use failure as a headwind or use failure as a tailwind, and you really invest in using it as a tailwind, that tailwind can propel you towards some of the greatest things. So it doesn't matter where you come from, what your circumstances are, whether you were born rich, whether you were born poor, whether you were born disabled, whether you were born in a certain part of the world. It just, life can take you anywhere. And I'm living proof of that life can take you anywhere. And the book Anti-Fragile is this saying that I really love. This is the wind extinguishes a candle and energizes fire. And when you think about that, can you use that wind to energize your fire, or does it just blow you out? And I'll leave you with that.
Wow. I think you touched on a lot there, like the highs and the lows of all of this need to like rely on fate with when it comes to seeking out your dreams and never like giving up. That's so important right now. And I think they resonated with me and definitely with like our audience today. So before we move on to like the questions from the audience, and you all can go ahead and ask all your questions in the Q&A right now. We want to have just like a quick conversation with just me, you, and Brenda to get us like all started off. Does that sound good?
Yep. I'm ready.
All right. And I'll ask the first question. So right now, I believe storytelling, people's ability to tell and own their story is the most powerful and important thing that anyone can do right now, to recognize it and to be comfortable with sharing it. Your story, like you just said, has come from like a very vulnerable place. Your career is literally helping people, again, like tell their story. Can you touch on the importance of storytelling within your own life, but also touch on the significance of that idea, telling and owning your story, to the rapper and singer in Mississippi, the artist and photographer in Newark, the activists and organizers in Minneapolis? Why is telling our story like right now so important?
Because you don't want somebody else to tell it for you. Like you don't want somebody else to write it for you. You know, I think that, us being able to tap into our own power, right? So like when I interview people to come work for my company, one of the things I always ask is like what is your superpower? Like, like every hero has a superpower. What's your superpower? Like what's, because everybody's really good at something, even if it's one thing. Everybody has that superpower. So I think, just being able to tell that story to yourself becomes more important than even telling it externally. And then sometimes, like what I think one of the things that I think I learned naturally, like instinctively, and then sort of refined over the years, just, from studying, just people who have been excellent at whatever they've done, is that it is being able to understand the narrative, that your narrative won't be your final chapter, right? So a lot of people get stuck because they feel like, okay, if XYZ happened to me, then now I'm defined by XYZ. And because everybody around me is telling me XYZ is supposed to happen to me, then of course I'm defined by XYZ. And so what I learned was this thing around thoughts become things. And this idea around manifestation, self-fulfilling prophecy. And one of the first things that Will Smith told me when I met him was, you're the sum of your closest friends. So if you hang with 6 knuckleheads, you're going to be the 7th. You hang with 6 successful people, you're going to be the 7th. So be very careful around who you surround yourself with, because that's going to have direct impact on your possible outcomes. So I learned how to start even writing my own imaginative story of, like, it's almost delusional of, hey, this is where I see myself. This is like, this is who I want to become. This is what I want to see. And this is a long-winded answer to your question. But when I turned 30, my wife and my mom gave me a gift. It was when I was 30, but it was for Father's Day. And I never was good at just keeping stuff, because I always try to push forward. So I didn't save like notes that I wrote to myself, or I didn't take a lot of pictures. Like if I did things on the road or whatever, I always try to, like, this thing of living in the moment and not, try to get stuck on the past. And I never forget, they gave me this gift. I opened it up and it was a scrapbook of all of the letters that I had written to myself as a kid. I'm getting choked up thinking about it. It was mind-blowing, because a lot of the stuff that I dreamt for myself had actually come into fruition. And like the goals that I written down for myself was like accomplished, all except for the girl that I said I was gonna marry. And I think I upgraded, by the way. So that part I got lucky on. But just being able to look at this thing of like using my imagination and thinking about the circumstances that I was under when I was writing these notes just shows how grace can all come together for you if you stay with it.
Thank you so much, Troy. I think that was just such a powerful message about really the importance of taking that time to really think about your goals, think about your past, your future, everything. I think that was really beautiful. I absolutely loved your superhero question. I think if a boss asked me that, I'd kind of be stumped. But I think that's something to really think about, because it's true, we're all really, really good at one thing. You know, that's our superpower. And I think it just helps us realize the strength and the power that we really do have within us.
Mm-hmm.
So for your next question, in telling your own stories and multiple interviews, you really are very open about your successes, your failures, and really the unconventional path that you had to get to where you are. You mentioned how success, it really isn't just a straight line. It's, for you, it was all over the place, and for many people, it really is. And so you also mentioned that in your past, you really had to just figure things out on your own. You had to figure out what your path would be. You couldn't really rely on networks or connections or anything of that sort. It was really you working, you know, hard for what you wanted. Similarly, many first generation students, many minority students, we really lack these resources, these connections, and we also have to really make our path on our own. And so I guess my question is, what advice would you give to these students, to these young people that are trying to really follow their dreams and are trying to reach this success, but their path looks unconventional and they might be kind of scared because it doesn't look like that of their peers? What advice would you give to them?
You gotta knock on that door and bang on that door until it opens. And because a lot of people just will like start feeling sorry for themselves when they get told no, right? And so like internships, I feel like is a really, really big thing. And I was listening to a podcast recently where Reid Hoffman, who is a fellow, Henry Crown Fellow, is the founder of LinkedIn. And Reid does this podcast called Masters of Scale. And he had Robert Smith, who runs one of the most successful private equity firms, Black billionaire, on there, kind of talking about how he got started. And in his story, Robert is talking about how when he was in, I think, 9th or 10th grade, he would write letters or call, he would write letters to Bell Labs about getting his internship or call, and he would do it every single week. And he would tell them that, I'll just keep calling until something opens up, because they only would take college interns. They wouldn't take high school interns. So it was only college. And he did it for almost a year. And somebody, a college student from MIT, didn't show up for his internship at Bell Labs. And the woman who had been taking the calls or letters from Robert called him up and asked if he could come in to do it. And that was Robert Smith's sort of first thing into the door in terms of him becoming an engineer, then him going to work for, going to school, then working for Goldman Sachs, then starting his private equity firm, becoming a billionaire. And then also last year, he paid for all of the student debt at one of the historically black colleges for the graduating class when he gave the student address, right? And is one of the most fantastic philanthropists that you'll ever meet. But it started from this, every time he was told no, he just did not give up. So I think a lot of it is being able to do that. But when he got in the door, he showed up. That's the thing. When I got my internship with Diddy, I want to be the first to get there and the last to leave. I want to beat all of these interns. Like, no one's gonna leave before me today. No one's gonna. I want to be here when the first guy opens up the door in the morning. So it's like just having that attitude of I really want to be the best. I got to stand out, and I got to show up more than anybody else is gonna show up. Can't be regular, and you can't be average and expect above average outcomes.
I heard that. So get in the door, show up, and stand out.
Yes.
Y'all can do that.
Yes.
All right. So I know that the audience is dying to ask their questions. People can continue to ask questions using the Q&A feature. But first, today we want to experiment with taking a couple of live audience questions from participants. So for our first question, we're going to go to Habakkuk Cooper Thompson from St. Louis.
Hi, Troy. Hi, Tyler. Hi, Brenda.
Hello.
Hey.
Hosting this for us. So I'm going to go right into my question. Tyler, you did a great job in the beginning of talking about kind of like what the community is going on outside of COVID-19. And so my question is going to follow up in a little bit more detail and kind of getting your idea of it, Troy. So currently our community is hurting. Another Black man has been killed by a police officer. I'd like to know your thoughts on this, how you think we can address this problem, and how you think people should respond.
You know, it is heavy. It's so what was crazy is my wife forwarded me this email the same morning that the news came out about, you know, that murder. And this is, you know, of course, you know, sort of right on top of what happened in Central Park with the white woman accusing basically weaponizing her race and weaponizing her privilege. And I got an email from my wife from one of our neighbors who I hadn't met in Martha's Vineyard, asking if it was a picture from her security cam of a landscaping truck outside of our house, and, you know, two Black guys in uniform, in their landscaping uniforms, and that had walked through her backyard to get to our yard or whatever, because all of the yards are sort of kind of connected. But she was disturbed, that asking us, you know, are you guys familiar with them? It is a van with the name of their landscaping service on it. They're in their landscaping uniforms. Martha's Vineyard crime rate is next to zero. But, you know, it's the fact that it's two Black guys that are walking across your lawn alarms you, right? And it's because it's this built-in bias that when I explain this to my non-Black friends that don't quite get it, and I did a trip to Mexico City with my YPO forum, which is Young Presidents Organization. And we do a retreat every year with 10 people from my forum. And one guy in my forum has a private plane. One of my guys in my forum owns Riot Games, and like he set up, like, you know, the transportation and security when we hit the ground, because Mexico City could be a bit dangerous. And, you know, we're feeling good coming in. It's gonna be a long weekend. We pull up to the hotel, we go to the back, and we get out, we're getting our luggage. I go to get my luggage out the back of the SUV. And all I feel is myself being attacked and being gripped. And they thought I was still in my own luggage. They didn't touch nobody else who took their luggage out of the car. The moment I grab my luggage, I get attacked by security. I've been the guy on vacation with my family where, you know, we're at poolside and somebody comes up and hands me the towel. I've been the guy pulled over multiple times by the police with all of my stuff out on the curb, sitting on the curb. So understanding the dangers that go in, that just comes along with being Black in America is a heavy, heavy, heavy load. And unfortunately, is no end in sight. It is no end in sight. And we could think about every type of solution. And Oprah said something years ago that pissed people off. And she said people just have to die off generationally. And people really got pissed off with her for saying that when they say, you know, how do you fix racism? And that's the reality. That's the reality. Because our country is hardwired for it. Our police forces are hardwired for it. This wasn't Alabama where the guy in Central Park was. This is New York City. This is a Harvard graduate and a woman that's an investment banker. So what happened in Minnesota could have easily been that guy in Central Park. And by the way, I could leave my house and that could easily be me. I got 3 sons. That could easily be them. So the reality is, and I'm just gonna be completely honest in this conversation, white people got to check themselves and understand the privilege that comes along with being born that way. And they got to really understand like that these aren't one-offs, and we can't treat them like one-offs. And when you look at the civil rights movement, it wasn't just solved by Martin Luther King and Black preachers walking through the streets or doing boycotts and things along those lines. It was you had Jews alongside. You had so many people. You know, when you look at the LGBT movement, you had to have multiple groups. Like it will not happen from just Black Lives Matters protesting by themselves and being out there on their own and being pinned a radical organization. You know, it won't happen by us sort of forgetting about it after, 6 months go by until the next one that's actually on videotape gets put out on the internet again. It's hardwired into our country the same way mass shootings are hardwired. And it's the design. So until there's a ground up rebuild, I don't know what to tell you in terms of answers, but I'm just as afraid and concerned as any other Black man in this country, because it could be me.
Thank you so much, Troy, for being just so open and so honest and having just an honest conversation with us about this and about, your own fears and for yourself, for your family, and really for our communities. We're gonna move on to the next question. So
the other thing that I would say, right, and is because I think there's ways, because I don't want to just say there's nothing, right? But when you look at this idea around bias, right? And so where people are automatically seen as something, right? The images of Black men and whether it's through television, whether it's through film, whether it's through print media, whether it's through, whatever, through social, whatever these mediums are, is like, it's where people can see us different, where people can see us as loving, caring fathers, where people can see us as people who care about our communities and are good sons, and like, and the brother in Central Park was a bird watcher. You know what I'm saying? It's like we could be bird watchers. We're not all gangbangers. So we're in the park. We're not in the park just drinking a 40. We could be in the park with watching birds. But that black thing that you see in our hands, they may mistake those binoculars for a gun because it's a bias. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how can we use our roles and whatever seat that we sit in to sort of change the perception so that others' brains aren't automatically wired into the sort of default fear that comes along with the color of that skin.
Yeah, and I can add to that, like, I think that's why it's so important when it comes to like storytelling and people owning and telling their own story, because we can say who we are and be bold in saying and telling and displaying that on our Instagrams, our Facebook, our YouTube channels, and really get an image of like who we really are and begin to reimagine like our relationship with one another. And so I think people being creative in this time is the biggest thing that we could do right now. So, and I think I want to like go ahead and get to this next question too, Brenda.
Yeah, 100%. And that really just goes with everything you've been saying, Troy, about if you don't write your own story, then someone else will. And so just really encouraging the audience to take that step to tell their story, to really voice it, put it out there in any way that you can. So the next question is from Nicholas Presley from Webbs, Mississippi. He is currently a biology and sociology major at Tougaloo College. The question is, where did you begin to claim your agency over your life?
I would probably say in my early 20s is when I probably understood it more, because like my son Troy, I had Troy when I was 22 years old. Troy's 24 now. He'll be 25 next month. But you know, I had Troy when I was 22, which I had to be responsible for another human being that didn't come with an instruction manual. So I'm like, okay, I gotta figure this out because nobody's gonna figure it out for me. So so I think having my first child was the sort of where I felt like I wasn't just responsible for myself anymore, and like I couldn't really flounder like that. I think that's when I kind of took it a little bit more seriously.
All right, so the next question is coming from Alexis from Newark, New Jersey. Her question is, what are some tips you would give to the Black community when speaking on depression and mental health? And she also wanted to thank you for speaking with us today.
Talking openly about it. And, you know, I know within my own family and my own community that, you know, that I grew up in is like, you know, you were considered crazy if you saw a therapist or a psychologist, right? And, you know, and then the other thing too, it's like, we didn't have even access to anything like that. So when you look at how many people end up going undiagnosed with certain mental health issues, or unmedicated with certain mental health issues, or even never developed the coping tools that then turn into other behaviors or whatever, a lot of times is because we don't talk openly about it. A friend of mine and who was a mentor to me as I was becoming a talent manager, and I actually, you know, worked out of his office in New York when I was going up into New York every once in a while, was a guy named Chris Lighty. And Chris was manager for 50 Cent and Tribe Called Quest, and like one of the greatest managers in history. And I remember being in Europe one day and got the news that Chris killed himself, and was like devastated, because I'm like, he would be the last guy that I think would have killed himself. And all of our friends, you know, in the music community are like, hold on, he just didn't talk to anybody as he was going through all of this stuff. And come to find out, Chris was having financial issues. He was having some marriage issues. He, you know, just going through all of this stress. And that was, I found myself having more and more conversations with other Black executives about depression after that, and finding out that everybody had gone through it. And then you start talking to people about, oh my God, like I was so embarrassed to even ever tell somebody that I had an anxiety attack, right? Like these are conversations. And it's like, cause you don't want to seem weak, because weak are preyed on coming from our community a lot of times, right? So you got to put up this, this perception of I'm this. You know, we're not even allowed to cry as boys. You know, so a lot of the stuff we end up holding in, and that comes out in other ways, whether it's through anger issues and other things. So I think being able to be vulnerable enough to talk to people about this. And I still that's like when I went through that thing that I explained to you guys, that's when I started talking publicly about failure. I hadn't talked about failure prior to that. Like, cause I didn't want anybody else, people to know that I ever failed at other things, right? So, but that's when I felt open enough, because I'm like, I want people to understand that you can come out of this. And when it comes to mental health, it's the same exact thing. Like, where, because I get to work with a lot of established people in life, right? In terms of whether it's celebrities, politicians, athletes, influencers, that, if you looked at their lives from the outside, you would be depressed, because you're like, oh my God, this person has the perfect life. Like, oh my God, they have no problems whatsoever. And what I know from somebody who gets a glimpse inside of, quite a few people, they go through the same things. They go through a ton of insecurities, if not more. They go through depression. They go through relationship issues. They go through miscarriages. They go through failed marriages. They go through failed businesses. So everything that we go through in our human journey, they do too. But a lot of people just want to hold on to this perception. And I think that adds a layer of depression onto society, when you're seeing women with no stretch marks and you're seeing guys with no war scars on them, because everything's been perfect in their lives, not knowing that they go through the same things that we go through every day. And we're putting our measuring stick against a real false measuring stick. And I think we got to get out of that.
Thank you, Troy. Our next question is from Brilliant McDaniel, coming from St. Louis. He is a music creative person. He's very musically creative. And he was wondering basically, what is the best way to really grow right now, especially during this pandemic?
Grow in what way? Like, I just want to answer the question, right?
I think creatively, in terms of as an artist.
It's not a one size fits all answer, so because all artists are, sort of creative in their different ways. And, some artists work off of inspiration, and some artists work off of, the sort of constant practice of, I just go to the studio every day, whether something comes out or not, but, I'm going to do it until something great yields from it. So it's sort of just kind of tapping into your intuition is what I would say, and sort of staying away from the noise of sort of the news and that sort of undercurrent that's happening right now of, people being sort of down because of like the stay-at-home orders and those sort of things. Like, how can you swim above that undercurrent creatively?
So Troy, this is actually going to be the last audience question, because the next section is going to be the lightning round. So our last question is actually going to be a voice question from Vaughn Jackson from Indianola, Mississippi.
You're on mute, boss?
How do you cultivate healthy relationships between people who ideologies differ?
That part is just being open and understanding that you could be wrong, right? You know, and that part, I feel this is the beauty of Aspen Institute too, by the way, is because when I look at my Henry Crown class, it's like you got a mixture of people who genuinely love each other and some people with completely opposite ideologies around politics. And like, you know, so where, you know, politics these days could be super divisive. So when you could sort of find that middle ground of like, and for us, we might agree on 99% of things or 90% of things, or even people that you may disagree with 90%. Can you find that 10% common ground? And then also, you know, how do you find those ways where you're biased? You know what I'm saying? Like because right now it's like, if somebody's a Republican, then automatically, you know, some people might assume that they're racist. Some people may assume you don't care about Mexicans or blacks or this group or this group. And it might be for different reasons, right? So just being able to elevate above your own bias and seeing, can you find that common ground?
Thank you so much, Troy. And thank you to the audience. Thank you guys for all of these amazing questions, for being so interactive. So the next section, Troy, is actually going to be a lightning round. So the way that's going to go is Tyler and I are going to ask you a bunch of questions back to back. They're going to go pretty quickly. So just try to keep up. You ready?
As you guys can see, I'm not good at short answers. So
I'll set it off. So if you could hear one album for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life.
What's your favorite city in the United States?
Philadelphia.
Wait, favorite city in the world, I guess.
Paris or Tokyo. Tokyo, that's the answer.
Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to speak to animals?
Animals.
Invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Butter pecan.
Favorite hobby?
That's a hard one. I guess favorite hobby would be probably reading.
Apple Music or Spotify?
That one's easy. Spotify.
Okay, this is a serious question. So, do you prefer your dipping sauce on your food or off to the side?
Put it on the food for me.
No.
So this is our last question. What would you want the audience and all of the amazing people that are joining us today to really leave off with? If they could, just one thing that you want them to all remember after the session is over, what would it be?
Be good to yourself. Don't be hard. We're harder on ourselves than we're even harder on other people. Mm-hmm. So just be good to yourself. Forgive yourself. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Love yourself. And then I think like once you can tap into that, it just automatically opens up for other people.
100%. Thank you so much for everything. That concludes our lightning round. Thank you, Troy. We genuinely just appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. I think for us, it was especially meaningful because so many of us can relate to your background, can relate to your story. And we really just see you as one of us, and just being able to see that you're successful, that you really made it throughout like all these hardships that you had, it really inspires us. And it shows us that even though we might be at a disadvantage, even though we might not have some of these networks, some of these connections, resources, honestly, if we work hard and we have this grit and we just have this mentality, we can accomplish so many things. And I think we just really needed to hear that, especially during these hard times. So we really just appreciate you coming here.
Look, Tyler and Brenda, you guys are superstars and like amazing interviewers, by the way. I'm like, you guys are pro. So thank you for doing this, and just best of luck with everything, and just wishing you guys a lot of grace and success.
Thank you. And I just want to add to that too, because I think what this is meant to do is to transfer some of that like power that's like in this room, in this atmosphere, to bring the intellect and the vision that you have down to the people in our communities. And it goes back to just like storytelling and being able to like tell and own our stories. Like people that takes so much courage, so much boldness, so much, I guess, like really seeing what the world, what the country, what our communities can actually be. And me and Brenda, we talked about this a lot, that like once the people in our communities start telling their stories, that's where this whole country is going to look totally different. And I'm excited, and I think we're getting closer and closer to that. And just having this conversation with you is a marker in that direction towards like a totally different like America, in my opinion. So thank you.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you so much. So unfortunately, that's it for the question and answers. We couldn't answer all of you guys' questions, but we are just so impressed with the amount of questions that you guys received, the feedback and everything. It really just indicates to us the wealth of talent that us young people can really bring to the table. I want to thank the audience for attending. I saw a couple HLLC and Aspen people in there. I'm so glad you guys made it. I want to thank the community partners for continuing to invest in young people. Our hope really is that Youth Lead Now is a reminder to everybody listening about how powerful and how needed it is right now for us to help our communities thrive.
And so at the beginning of the session, we shared that our partners at Wizen and the Aspen Institute had a special surprise. Both organizations are committed to ensuring that we aren't just building resilience abstractly, but providing practical tools for resilience. Thanks to Wizen, every youth viewer of today's live webinar will receive 1 hour of free tutoring to be used within the next 30 days for anything from resume writing to math tutoring, GRE, and ACT prep. So all the viewers will receive an email within the next 24 hours with information on how to access this. And a huge thank you to Wizen and the Aspen Institute for making this possible.
Yes, and additionally, as a member of our extended Aspen family, you will all be receiving an invitation to take part in a global art exhibit that's going to be honoring Felix Gonzalez Torres. Felix was known for his landmark installations exploring identity, death, and intimacy. His work was a call for action during the height of the AIDS crisis, a disease which eventually claimed his life. His work encouraged viewers to engage with art directly, and we hope that you will be able to do the same to continue his legacy. More details will be included in a follow-up email after this event. And along with that email, you guys are going to be receiving a couple emails. So along with that one, we would also really love if you guys fill out a short survey. It will be sent through email. There's also going to be a QR code on the screen later on. But we would just love to hear your feedback on what topics would you guys want to hear, what speakers would you want, and different just formats that we can really switch this up. A record of this session will be posted for use and resources on how to really continue this conversation in our own communities. It's going to be available on our website. We'll be back next month with another edition, and we really hope to see you all again. Thank you so much to Aspen. Thank you to all of our amazing audience. Tyler, you were an amazing co-host. Thank you to you and to Troy. Thank you guys. It was so much fun.